G'day and welcome to another video with Better Pics. Hope this finds you all well. Today's video is going to be a sample edit of an image that I photographed in Sydney about a year ago. I was in Sydney for a work shoot and decided to take a bit of extra time and wander around the city and see what images I can capture. So yeah, as you can see, it's a view of the city, the Sydney Harbour Bridge, looking across to the Opera House. This was shot at sunset. See the sun setting on the right hand side, which is the western part. This is looking south across the Sydney Harbour, and a number of things that I want to do with this image. So firstly, what we're going to do is fix the atrocious horizon line. I'm sure that it stood out to you straight away as well, but it's certainly something that needs to be fixed. As you can see, the horizon is incredibly crooked on this image. I'm not sure what I was looking at, but sometimes it happens, and we get a very crooked image. So what I'm going to do is just hit A as a shortcut, which is A for a line, and I'm going to draw a line across the image approximately where I want the horizon line to be straight, and you can see that straightens it immediately. Now it does crop out the image somewhat. You can see it's dropped the resolution from 24 megapixels to just over 20. But you can see there's still plenty of resolution there for having a nice detailed image as a final result that will still print up really well. So details for this image: it was photographed on a Canon R3. I was using an old 17-40 f4L series. It was 1.6 seconds at f14 and ISO 50. Now, normally I wouldn't go up to f14, but the reason that I did that is I wanted to get a little bit of movement in the water. And you can see there's a boat passing through here just under the bridge, and it's quite blurred. So unfortunately, I didn't have any neutral density filters on me on this day. So the way to get there was to go to the lowest possible ISO, which for this camera is ISO 50. And I wanted about a second or longer, so 1.6 seconds. And the way to do that was to close down the aperture, reduce the light coming into the lens down to f14. Now, this lens probably has an optimum shutter of around f8. So we would have started to lose a little bit of detail stopping it down to f14, but the main focus was I wanted to have that longer shutter speed for that movement in the water. So what it basically means is next time I'll make sure I've got some neutral density filters with me, so we've got more control over the exposure. All right, now that we've straightened our horizon, let's get into the edits. So we're just going to start with some general edits. Let's go up to light. I'm just going to increase the exposure a little bit because I want to get a little bit more detail in that bridge, as you can see. I'm going to drop the highlights because I don't want to lose the nice warm glow that's that sunset over there. I'm just going to drop that exposure a tiny bit again. I'm going to drop the highlights right down because we want to maintain that detail over where the sun is setting. And we're going to lift the shadows just a little bit. We don't want to go overboard. And let's add a little bit of contrast here. We're not going to go too much. Around plus 20 would be fine. Let's go down to colour. We're going to add in some vibrance and saturation. As always, I try to photograph with a fairly flat profile so that I can maintain all of the colour and exposure detail. And main benefits there is it just allows me to maintain as much detail for editing as possible. So let's just, yep, that's great. Around plus 30 vibrance. Around plus, let's go plus 15 saturation. That looks pretty good. You can see we've got a beautiful sky. Some lovely colours there. We are going to make some adjustments to the colour temperature. We're just going to warm it up a little bit. That looks pretty good. And that tint looks good. Yep, that's great. Let's go down to detail. We're going to sharpen up this image just a little bit. Always good to come in as close as possible. I like to go into 100% whenever I'm applying sharpening because it means that we can see pixel by pixel, so we know the actual effect that it's having on the image itself. And as always with sharpening, we're going to apply a little bit of masking as well, because image like this, we don't want to apply sharpening to the sky because there's nothing to sharpen, but we do want to apply sharpening to the structures. So we're just going to, holding down my Alt or Option key if you're on a Mac, and sliding that slider along the masking, and we can see the adjustment of where that sharpening is being applied to in the white areas. Excellent, that's great. Let's just go down to the buildings over here. Yep, that looks good, nice and detailed. And we'll come back out to our full image. So looking at the full image, I'll just press the Alt or Option key again and hold down the masking. You can see that the sky doesn't have any sharpening applied to it, but the areas where we want sharpening applied is. So it's a great tool to know exactly where that sharpening is being applied. I'm not going to worry about noise reduction too much because we were shot at ISO 50. And if we have a look nice and close, particularly in the sky, there really is no noise in this image. It's very clean, which is great, as you would expect out of a camera like the R3. It's a fantastic camera, even at high ISOs. From a noise perspective, we're just going to look at those shadows again. And let's just bring that up a little bit. Just want to get a tiny bit of detail under that bridge. As you can see, we don't want to bring it up too much because it is in a shadow part of the bridge. You'd expect it to be darker, but we just want that little bit more. Yep, that's brilliant. All right, let's have a look at the color again. Excellent, yeah, a little bit of warmth because we would expect with a sunset like this for there to be a little bit of warmth on the bridge with that afternoon light coming across, particularly on the sails of the Sydney Harbour Bridge as well. Let's have a look at optics. By default, I have removed chromatic aberration and profile correction checked yes. If we turn that off, you can see that it just takes a little bit of that distortion with the 17mm, because we shot this at 17mm. It's quite a wide angle lens. Just takes a little bit of that distortion out. So just to straighten things up a little bit, that works well. All right, I am pretty happy with that image. So as you can see, from when we started to where we are now, it's certainly a much better improvement in terms of color, contrast, detail in the shadow areas, and overall presentation of the image. The only thing that I'm going to add in now that I look at it, and often I'll come back to images, so what I'm doing now is not an uncommon thing, is I'm just going to apply a tiny bit of exposure and highlight reduction in that area over here where that sun's setting, just because I want to maintain that detail and glow. And what I'm going to add in there as well is a tiny bit of warmth. If we go to the extreme, you can see it's a little bit too much, but if I just add in a tiny bit of warmth, yeah, that's great. It just helps to reinforce that warmth and glow that you would expect from a setting sun or with a clear sky. All right, I am pretty happy with that image. Let's go and have a look again at the before and after. Yep, that's great. Color looks great. Detail on the bridge looks great. We haven't blown out the highlights. In fact, we've pulled back some of the detail in the highlights over on the right-hand side of the frame. And I think the shutter speed that I chose works well. The water doesn't look totally smooth, as you wouldn't expect it to be on such a busy harbour. But there's a bit of movement there just to soften it as well. Excellent. So I'm pretty happy with that image. I don't see that I would make any further changes, but occasionally I'll always come back to them, particularly if they're going to print, just to make sure I'm happy with everything. And I'll usually do a few test prints as well, just to be sure. Hope you've enjoyed this video and some of the techniques have helped you learn a few things. As always, any questions are welcome in the comments below. Otherwise, look forward to seeing you next time. Take care.